Welcome to More Than a Few Words, a marketing conversation for business owners. This is your host, Lorraine Ball. If you are a woman business owner or you are thinking about being a woman business owner, the fact is there are obstacles for us that aren't as high, aren't as tall, and aren't as wide as they are for our male counterparts. I'm not saying that to discourage you, because the truth is there are successful women who have climbed up, over, around, and through. And one of those people is Sharon Gillenwater. She is a tech startup founder and business executive whose mission is to demystify entrepreneurship and make it more accessible for everyone. And just a little bit about her successes. In 22, she sold Boardroom Insiders, a business she built with no venture funding, for $25 million. It can be done. Sharon, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
It is so nice to have you here, and I am really excited about diving into this conversation. And I would like to start with, what do you think some of the obstacles are that women face that they need to find a creative strategy to overcome?
Funding is the number one. Not all businesses need startup capital, but a lot of them do. Venture funding, only about 2% of venture funding goes to women founders. And then there's, the whole network. If you've not been immersed in this entrepreneurial network and have connections, you might have really a lot of difficulty getting access to angel funding or small business loans or talent because you're not immersed in the network. So that's the main one. But then there are also, I think there's a lot of gatekeeping that's done just with jargon and language meant to exclude people or make them feel like they don't belong. I try to, not use a lot of jargon because it makes entrepreneurship and mergers and acquisitions, when you're getting ready to sell, it makes it sound complicated, like it's something you can't do or that you need an MBA to do it. And you really don't. You just need access to other people who know how to do it and are willing to share that information in a simple, clear way that's easy to understand.
I have seen a lot of women's networking groups springing up and angel groups specifically for women entrepreneurs. So I can see that there are those support networks out there, but I have this business idea. What should I do to get prepared to look for funding, whether it is from an angel network, whether it's from an investor or a bank? What are the things I really need to know?
Well, the first thing you need to do is somehow write down very clearly what your idea is and start thinking about, what is the business model? What is the cost structure going to be, and how is that going to work? Who's your intended audience, and what is the size of that market, total addressable market? And you don't have to do this alone. I mean, you can access data online to build this business case. But what I always recommend is you talk to as many people as possible who you think might know something that can help you or can refer you to somebody else. That is one of the most powerful things I did for my business. And it's one of the most powerful things I'm doing right now for my reinvention of myself. You can't do this sitting in an office by yourself. You have to get out and start talking to industry people who might be experts in the industry you're trying to break into. And each person may not have the answer, but they will refer you to other people. So it's going to be a series of conversations that you have. And for me, that's always gotten me where I needed to go.
I totally agree with you. When I first thought about starting my business 20 years ago, I called the smartest people I knew. And it didn't even matter if they were in a similar industry. I was just, what do you think? Does this sound crazy? Look at it through your lens, as well as talking to people who were doing exactly what I thought maybe I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. All right. So I'm talking to people and I've got some good ideas. I've started to do my research and I think I'm ready to take that next step. As you were making that leap, was there a mistake that you made that if you could go back, you would do it again? So maybe we can vicariously learn from you.
Well, one of the mistakes I made early on was that I was consulting in the area that I had a product idea for, right? So I was immersed in tech marketing with all these tech marketers at the biggest tech companies in the world. So that was great. I had my idea. I started talking to them about it, and I started building pieces of the digital product. But I took the money from my consulting business and I paid for things in the development of my new business, and I didn't keep them separate. And it's a little thing, but it had ripples for 14 years. When we got ready to sell, it was on our books. And I never even really fully put all the money that I spent on the books because I didn't adequately keep track of it. I'm not a very organized person. And it was a sign to me that I thought the business would probably never go anywhere. If I was convinced from the start that this is going to be a viable product and I'm going to build it and sell it, I would have kept it separate. So that was a mindset issue for me, just an aside. But keep your records clean because you never know where you're going to go. You could build it, you could take on partners, investors, and that lack of clean beginning is going to haunt you for a while.
Absolutely. It's funny because when I sold my business, I had created a separate entity and I had pulled over my podcast and my online training because I didn't want to sell those. And so I think that's the other side of it is keeping the books clean and then also thinking about pieces maybe that need to be separate. Starting a business on paper is pretty inexpensive.
Yes. Yes, it is. And then there will come a time that you have to pull, one thing we did is we transitioned from a C corp to an S corp, for example. And it doesn't mean you made a mistake. It just means that your needs as a business owner or the needs of the business require that you tweak something a little bit.
I think those are some of the things that you can also learn as you talk to other business owners about business structure and not just listening to the very first person who says, oh, you need an LLC or whatever it is they tell you, but really looking at that wide range and getting all of that input.
Absolutely.
As you were thinking about this business and you're starting to get it going, how and when did you decide it was time to pay yourself?
Oh my gosh. Well, it was time to pay myself ASAP, but that's not what happened. And that's why I kept consulting. I kept consulting for the first 6 years of my company. I mean, imagine that. And it was just a matter of how much revenue we had coming in the door. I took on a partner in 2010, and we didn't really start paying ourselves regularly until 2012. And it was just because we felt like we were on solid enough ground. We had enough revenue coming in. And at first, it's just, okay, we're going to pay ourselves whatever we can afford to pay ourselves. And then we put ourselves on kind of a regular cadence. And it started, like 2,000 a month for each of us, and then 4,000 a month. And we just kept increasing it over time in a way that we could sustain those amounts.
Did you find that once you committed to paying yourself, that you looked at your revenue and expenses? Did it change how you looked at your revenue and expenses when you knew you had that commitment to pay yourself?
I don't think so. It seems like it would, but it didn't because we didn't make the commitment, beyond a month to month decision for a very long time. Um, and when we eventually set it up, we did it, we were both paid a little bit differently because he was in South Carolina and I was in California. So the tax laws are different, right? So we waited a very long time and we didn't have any full-time employees until 2016. So that was when we really got serious about making things consistent.
Wow. We're almost at the end of our time. If there was one more tip that you would give business owners as they're starting up, what's that last tip that you want to leave them with?
When you hear from naysayers about your business, consider where that feedback is coming from because I had a lot of naysayers in the beginning and it could have stopped me from doing anything. But guess what? I had some real fans and those fans were my customers. So even though funders, VCs were saying, this isn't going to work, even though industry people were saying, this isn't going to scale, the customers loved it. And so I shut out that feedback and just focused on the customers from day one. And that got me where I needed to go.
Fantastic. Sharon, this has been fabulous. Thank you so much for being a part of the show.
Thank you for having me.
If you are listening and you enjoyed the comments and suggestions from Sharon, I'm going to suggest that you take a look at SharonKGillenwater.com. There'll be a link in the show notes. You'll find information on her books. You'll be able to sign up for her newsletter. You'll even be able to book a private office hours conversation. And I think you should do all those things. Sharon, thanks again.
Thank you.
And if you've enjoyed this conversation and would like to find other resources for your business, be sure to look for MTFW wherever you listen to podcasts. Listen to two. They're short. This has been another episode of More Than a Few Words. Thanks for listening.